Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, we're going to continue with the installation of this Android Auto Apple CarPlay unit for the Toyota Avalon. I've got a 2014 Toyota Avalon. On my last video, I went over details and all the wiring for this iDoing Android Auto Apple CarPlay head unit. So on today's video, we'll show you how to remove the radio out of the car, swap over the parts you need onto this unit, and then reinstall it. It should be a pretty quick and simple install, so stay tuned. So we're inside the Toyota Avalon here, and to take out the radio on this car, it's pretty simple if you know what you're doing, right? So it looks like you can't really see anything, but pretty much everything on this car kind of clips in. They're just very simple panels that push in. For example, this top part right here, which I've redone on a previous video because the trim and the chrome was all peeling, I redid that. But that comes off pretty easily. It just kind of snaps off. You kind of get a tool right under the edge here, and the whole thing snaps forward and it comes right out of the car. And then once you do that, it exposes two screws on top here that you can take out. They're 10 millimeters. As far as the bottom, there's a panel right under here, and all you have to do is just get something right in between there, wedge it down and pop it out. There's a light that's right here that you have to unplug, and you can take that whole panel off. Again, once you do that, you expose two 10 millimeters at the bottom here that help you take it out. And really, that's all you really need to do just to take the whole unit out, other than all the wiring harness. So we'll go ahead and take that out right now. So first thing we'll do, we'll go ahead and take apart the top panel here. So pretty much just pull it on the two sides. Kind of pops out of the way. There's a piece of trim that hooks onto the steering wheel that you need to pop out. So you do that, this whole thing tucks out of the way. You gotta make sure you unplug the hazard switch right here. Once you do that, you'll see the two 10 millimeters on top. As far as the bottom goes, go ahead, just get this thing right under there. Pop the unit down. Once you get those two, you just slide forward because there's two more clips on each corner. Just 5 total clips. Go ahead and take this off. Slide this out of the way, put it in the back. So now under here, you'll see 2 more 10 millimeters right in the bottom here. Once you take those off, pretty much everything's loose, so you can just pop it forward. And then here's where you want to be careful. You don't want to scratch anything with all the metal brackets. You also need to get all the harnesses. So down here, there's looks like a harness on the bottom here that you got to undo, which is for the HVAC controls. So just pop that out of the way. So once that clears, you get that out. And the rest of it is just the radio harness right here. So you go ahead and just unplug each and every one of them. Pretty much that's it. The whole unit is out. So that unit came out pretty fast. You get it out in little 3 minutes. But it comes off pretty easily with those two 10 millimeters. So now what we have here is we have the actual radio right here, which we're going to be swapping out. So we're going to go ahead and take apart all the brackets here, take this whole thing out, unscrew this actual radio and all the parts right here, and separate the trim and the HVAC and AC controls from the rest of the radio, so that way we can swap it over to that unit and get it onto there. As you can see on this one, I mentioned on my previous video, the airbag light, it's got a hole right here for it, but it doesn't have the plug, so I'm gonna probably have to transplant the one from over here over to there, so that way we can have the airbag indicator and we don't get any warnings on that one. First thing we're gonna do is go ahead and just take apart these brackets. Once we do that, you can kind of see the trim piece and everything for the outside. We'll go ahead and unscrew these. I think it's right here's one. There's another trim piece on the bottom here. Not sure exactly how that separates. I do feel it loose. I don't want to break this or anything, so be careful. So that thing comes apart there. That off to the side. So the climate control, it just slid in sideways. So you basically just take the whole thing, slide it sideways, and it gets into the notches. And it pops it right out. So the climate control comes out. So now all we have is the factory radio. So we'll put the climate control off to the side so we don't damage that. So now the only other thing I need to get is the control unit for the airbag light and swap it over to here. And that one's going to require to take apart all these little Phillips screws right here and then take the back side of this from the front side. In addition, you're going to have these 3 yellow clips here. You're going to have to transplant those over to the new unit also. So we'll go ahead and start just taking apart all these screws. I was able to look into this hole and kind of see what the issue is. Under this piece of tape right here, there's a screw that's holding the last piece. That's what's the hold up right now. So you got to peel that piece of tape back and unscrew it. All right, so we got the screw out. So pretty much should come loose now unless there's another one on this side too, but I don't think so because that one's coming loose. When you pop that loose, you gotta be careful with the ribbon cable if you want to preserve your radio. You don't want to yank on that thing and get that out. So we just go ahead and just roll it this way. So this board right here is what we're gonna need because this board looks like it has all the lights for that right there. Pretty much it. You want to take that thing out, swap it over, and then we could go ahead and screw this thing back together. So now we got the new unit and we have to transplant that board over to here. So in order to do that, you actually have to unscrew the mount that holds the screen onto here into the bezel. So these are just tiny little Phillips screws similar to the ones that we took off from the factory radio. And if I do this, I'm actually going to remove the whole screen because this thing, if you saw my last video I showed you, is just a universal Toyota screen that they use for a lot of the other Toyotas, and they just put it into this bezel to fit. So once you do that, you should be able to just take it apart and you can see just the universal screen that just mounts to this bezel. So we'll just put that right here. These are probably the same ones they use on the Camrys, the Corollas, and all the other Toyota vehicles that they make this for. So for this piece, there's 3 screws. Once we get that out, we go get the board that we took out. And that just basically fits in the same spot with all the LEDs. And then the holes all line up. They got the 2 holes. We'll take the 2 little screws that we took off the factory radio. Let's go ahead and get those holes. They're marked here on the board. And then once we do that, we get this guy back on. And pretty much it right there for the airbag light and the board. So we'll go put this back together and put it in the car now. All right, so before we get it all back together, we want to reassemble the climate control and put the brackets and everything on here. Again, it goes on, you put it into the slots and you slide it sideways. Snaps right in. The next thing we want to do is go ahead and put the trim back on. All right, so interesting, they didn't have a mount or a piece that goes here. It looks like they were supposed to have another piece that fit right onto here, and it screws into this part, but I didn't see it in the box or anything that came with this. So it looks like a missing piece from the kit that they should have had that basically lets me screw this trim on the side here. On the factory side, you can see that same trim on that side. It has a special mount that is actually a separate piece from the thing, and then this is where that piece mounted onto right there. So what I did was I took that little piece right here off, that metal piece, and that actually lines up perfectly with the screw hole right there. So I'm gonna put it in, and it's gonna basically line up with that hole, and then I'll put a little grommet on the back side and then screw it in that way, and at least it'll have something to hold on to. So we'll use this nylon to hold it on the back side, and then we'll just screw it straight through there. This is off of one of the bumpers and license plate holder things. So here's how it looks when it's reassembled. That little piece over here where I put that grommet thing, it does cause this gap, but hopefully when it snaps back up and everything gets in, it closes the gap a little bit, but you can see that gap right there. And then right in the center here, there's a small gap right in the middle of the radio where this part is, but other than that, everything else looks good. I wish they would have did the same like material right here to match, but they put this glossy black, which is probably going to be reflective. It would have been nice if they had this little machine look. But anyways, pretty much ready to go in. I need to put those two metal brackets on, and we should be ready to go. All right, we have another little hiccup here. So the brackets don't fit properly, at least unless I have them on wrong for some reason. Maybe it's this direction. But either direction I put it, it still doesn't line up with the radio. All right, so I figured out the problem. Looks like the radio part here, it's off by about 3/4 of an inch on both sides. So it's shifted this way right here. So that's why this thing won't go all the way in. And this side has that big gap. I compared it to the factory radio, and it's definitely over more this direction as far as the radio goes. So definitely something I need to bring up with them to see if they have a replacement bracket or some other solution for this, as well as something for that over here. So definitely something they're just R&Ding for this as far as I can tell. I think you can install it without the brackets, but the brackets really hold the radio in. If you put it in without it, it's just going to be in by these guys right here, and those won't really hold everything securely, especially if you go over a bump or something. For now, I'm going to go ahead and just attach it right here just with the climate control piece, so that way at least I can bolt in one side to kind of hold something in place. In the meantime, I'll contact iDoing and see if they've got another piece for this or some other solution that's going to work. Other than that, this is pretty much it. We'll go ahead and try to put this back in, get all the wiring done, and connect this all up. So over here, this thing is set up for two different types of Toyotas depending on the reverse camera plug that you have. So either one of these will work, and they actually are pinned correctly as far as the wires, the 4 wires for the camera on this side, and then over here on this side. So in the car here, you can see the reverse harness for it. It uses a smaller one, but only 4 of the wires are needed. The harness that comes off the radio has the extra 3 that's not needed for the Avalon. So I tested this thing and I realized that this harness right here doesn't have the reverse wire that comes with other Toyotas. On other Toyotas, it's already built into here, but for some reason on the Avalon, I think it's going through the CAN bus, and this thing is not set up for that. So we're gonna have to run a wire from the side over here. Some other people had found the wire on the side of the door. So we'll go ahead and run that wire across so we can actually have a reverse signal to put this thing into reverse. After messing around, I discovered that just activate the rear view camera by plugging this thing up right here to a 12-volt power source. I'm just plugging it right into the cigarette lighter just to get my 12 volts. And it activates my reverse camera right there. So that's the factory OEM reverse camera. So I was scouring the internet and I couldn't find any wiring diagrams or really any information on finding the reverse wire on this car, just because it uses CANBUS to activate the reverse cam on the OEM radios. So the only thing I found was on a Toyota Nation post. Someone said that this light blue wire that's in this harness that's next to the door here, under the door seal, it's a light blue. There's a several of these light blues, but I found this one light blue that they said was the reverse signal that goes to the back. So I'm gonna go ahead and splice it and test it to see what it is. All right, so that was a bingo. So I tested it without any power just to see if there's any voltage, and it reads nothing. Once I put it in reverse, we're gonna get 12 volts out of this. All right, don't mind the beeping, it's just warning me, but once I put it in reverse, I get 11 volts right there, which is my signal. So I'm gonna go ahead and just tap it right here since I know for sure this is the wire. So instead of doing a generic crimp, you can see right here I use one of my new crimping tools where I just slice the bat and I use this crimper with this channel lock crimp. I got this from AliExpress. This thing's a pretty useful tool to make these OEM type crimps. But so I crimped the other piece right here with my new wire. So this thing's nicely crimped on there, ain't going nowhere. I didn't have to cut into this or cut it in half. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just wrap this with some 3M electrical tape and just wrap this whole thing up, and then fish that other wire up over the dash behind the, and then once I get in there, I'll show you what I'm gonna do as far as wiring it. You could do it the simple way and just plug it up to that harness that comes with it that just has the reverse signal, or you could put it into the OEM, which I'm gonna try to do. I'm gonna go ahead and try to put it in the OEM slot where it should be. So I went ahead and took apart the lower panel, fished the wire through up to here, got it all the way through. So I've terminated with this plug right here. It's gonna plug into the radio harness, and hopefully it's the correct signal to trigger it. Before I plug it up, I wanna test it to make sure I'm getting 12 volts once I put it in reverse. Go ahead and get started with the install. I'll go ahead and this CANBUS box, I'm gonna put some 3M double-sided tape and just put it on the top of the radio here. Double-sided tape to the corner on top of the unit, get it out of the way. Next thing I want to do, I want to route the extra USBs. So right now on the Avalon and most Toyotas, there's actually a spot for the cabin filter. You can kind of fish it through there, tuck it behind that area so you could reach it later if you don't want to drill a hole or make it permanent yet. So I'm just gonna put it right here for now. Go ahead and run my GPS antenna that we were showing on the other video. So you want to keep the GPS antenna pretty close to the top. So what I saw was the duct above the duct here. Again, this has that 3M tape on it. You can just peel that and just stick it to the top of this if you want. So I just want to fish it through, find a good spot. So once you get a good spot, just kind of let the tape work. So again, this is going to have a lot of extra, so you just want to loom it up, put your little twisty ties back on it, and then just tuck it away up here. Do that, we're good there. So other than that, we start making the other connections. So this green connector right here connects to the USB, which is a gray. So this is gonna enable your USB port to act as the new CarPlay AndroidAuto hardwired connection. So that goes in there, and then it adapts to the CarLink line right there. And then other than that, everything else pretty much should be plug and play. The other ones go straight into the radio. All right, that looks like it. Before we put it all back together, I just want to stick it up into here, and then we want to turn it on. So you want to get all the wires in the back, kind of out of the way. Line up. Make sure we have slack for everything. For sure. Snap it in place, and then we're gonna turn it on and check it. So right there, that's booting up right now. It's working. Thinks we're in Israel. So no GPS, no maps. So we're gonna go home. Like device, general, factory, user, system. It's the equalizer. Got everything put back together. It fit pretty good. Around here still kind of loose. That little side trim piece right there is not really tucked into anything, so it's kind of loose there too. But other than that, everything else kind of went back together pretty easily and smoothly. So right now that I've got everything working on here, the reverse works. Once I put it into reverse, it goes into the camera. Got everything working properly. We have to go in here and kind of do all the different settings if you have to do the settings, right? So the first thing you want to do is if you want wireless CarPlay on your Apple phone or even your Android, you want to go into Bluetooth. Once you connect the phone in there, it auto connects every time you get into the vehicle as far as the Apple CarPlay or the Android Auto. In addition, with that USB that we added down here that uses the factory USB cable, you could plug up any device to that and just do the wired connection. So I'll go ahead and grab my extra Android phone and I'll go show you guys how that works on the Android by just plugging it up. So I've got just a generic USB-C cable, nothing fancy, nothing high speed or anything, plugged into that USB port. Go ahead and just plug it into this Android device. And once you plug it in there, the phone's gonna ask about Android Auto, so you usually have to unlock it, and then it pulls it right up on the screen there. So as you can see, it pulls it right up, Android Auto. You go ahead and go in the side here and see all your different menus. So once you're in there, you can see we're in Waze right now. You can just scroll around and see everything. You go to Pandora, see what's playing on there. You go to your phone settings. You can go to different devices. You go to all your different apps right here. You can see how everything works. It's pretty straightforward there, and that's the wired connection right there. So if you get back to here, if you ever get out of the menu for Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, all you have to do is hit this middle button right here. CarLink 2.0 is the app, so it brings that all back up. So after we connected that power wire for the antenna, now you can go into radio. You can set all your different radio stations and your presets, and it's all coming in loud and clear now, no more static. So other things to look at on here, so once you go into here, it goes to all the different apps. So you can go to the actual app store, and here you have everything connected. Right now we don't have anything connected because it's not connecting to Wi-Fi because it's connected to the phone right now. We could disconnect the phone and go into Wi-Fi mode and see everything that's in here. So another setup thing you have to do once you get in here is you want to make sure you're connected to network. So you go to the WLAN or WLAN here and go into that mode and then connect. So you want to make sure your Wi-Fi is on and it's connected to your network. So once it's connected, it'll show a Wi-Fi signal up here. So you go into here and then you go to the App Store and kind of refresh and see what you can download as far as apps and all that stuff for your Android device. This thing's pretty much the App Store for this device, and it has various things. You could download different car themes right here. The factory theme, you could CarLink is another app that it comes with. I'm not sure what rear camera is, but that must be, oh, that's for the rear view camera, so it wants an update there, so you can hit update if you want that updated. So we get back to here and you can see the various apps and everything that's already here. You got Google, you got the actual Play Store, so you go in here, you can sign into your Google account and sign up and actually download different apps, because this is just an Android tablet after all. So for the Toyota Avalon, Camry and all that, pretty much all this stuff's set up already, so you don't really have to mess with it. But if you have other vehicles, you may be able to set this. I've tried to reset and reconfigure these and I just can't figure out how to get it to do it correctly. In addition, over here, vehicle settings, that's another thing. It reads all your data on your vehicle, so your CANBUS data and all that, so it pulls all this stuff through. So you can look at the history, your base information, which is like your speed, your mileage, your trip, your RPMs, the temperature outside, your amplifier settings. Here's one thing that I saw that even the factory radio and the factory system never had, was TPMS on this car. So you can actually go there and see all your tire pressures on all 4 wheels, and then even when you're driving you can see what's going on there. You go to setup. A lot of this stuff in setup you can't change. Chinese, it just stays Chinese, so you can't mess with that. The rest of this you can change various options in your vehicle that you can change normally. It's the way the remotes respond, the way that it locks and unlocks, the lights, daytime running lights, how long your lights stay on when you walk by, if your air conditioner is connected. Some of these park assist, if you have that in your vehicle, you can set. And then the rest of this, some of the stuff you can't mess with, like the fuel consumption, like that, it's grayed out, so you can't really set any of that. So in addition, you could go to like video player. You could plug up a USB stick to the USB cable here and actually play stuff off of that. So on video, the touch assist, if you want touch assist, it brings up a little dot on the screen to pull up the keyboard and things like that. If you have YouTube, you can sign into YouTube and watch videos from your YouTube when you're connected to Wi-Fi. It does come with a factory iGo GPS system, so if you don't want to use your CarPlay or you want offline maps, you can have this pull up. So this app's a pretty decent just standalone navigation app from iGo, so you can kind of see all your whole map there. So that's pretty much kind of it for the different apps. If you need a calculator in your vehicle for any reason, you have that. There's an equalizer for changing all your sound settings. Gallery, if you want to have pictures loaded onto here, you can load different pictures. So back here, we're going to go back to other settings, like just system settings that you may be interested in. So this thing, you could pretty much get in here and change all the general settings, user settings, and system settings. The factory settings actually password protected. So under device, you could change your display, different brightness, different options here. On the sound settings is something that you want to mess with just to make sure. The loud just kind of amplifies your sound so it's loud. There's a speed compensate down here where you can have it adjust the volume based on how fast you're going. There's a subwoofer, and the equalizer takes you back to the general equalizer there. And then you can turn on and off the keypad tone. So this is like, it turns on that sound. So I got rid of it just because I hate that beeping sound. So under setting, there's a bunch of crap on here. You just gotta play around with it to see what it does. Half this stuff I don't know what it is, so I just leave it off. Like auto start navigation, what that does is actually pulls up the navigation app, that iGo thing, every time you start the car, which I turned off. I just wanted to go to my previous program, whether it's the radio, CarPlay, or whatever it is. I'm not sure what the press any key to start means, so I left that off. The OSD time, I'm assuming that just sets the time to whatever device. Mirror the reverse image, that means your backup camera is mirrored. I didn't turn that on, obviously, because it's kind of annoying because everything's mirrored. The mute when reversing, I also turned that off so it doesn't mute my volume when I'm reversing. If you do the mute when reversing, you can adjust how much it mutes right here with the 20. As we move down, the default boot volume is another thing that you want to keep in mind. That basically resets your volume every time you start the vehicle up, so I just left it at 8. And then the mixing scale, the sound mixing scale. So under user settings, it's just location, Google settings. So these are just your basic Android settings. Same with the system button right here, pretty much all your different Android settings. So the factory settings, here's something that you probably didn't want to figure out. So the password is 3368 from the factory. That's how you get in. So this thing does a lot of stuff that you probably don't want to mess with. For this Avalon, they actually set it as a Camry. So it's got the XP box, that's the CAN box I have, Toyota Camry, and then just a CANBUS XP box. It's not the amp or the high amp, so you don't have to worry about that. Next thing you know, the original car agreement, this thing's another big thing that you want to mess with. So the temperature, I keep on changing this from the switch between Celsius and Fahrenheit. I turn it on, but it always turns off, so I don't know if that's anything that you could really set. The automatic start and stop, we don't have that feature. Radar display, we don't have that. The reverse lines, that's another thing you want to turn off, because your factory camera, as you can see here, already has the lines, the blue and red lines, so you don't have to worry about that on the Avalon. But if you have an aftermarket camera, you might want those reverse lines. So I turned those off. I also turned off the little radar display on the side. So if you turn those on right there, and then when I put it back in reverse, you can see those lines pop up right there and the little car on the side. So this one right here, door on and off, that just basically anytime someone opens the door on your vehicle, or it'll pop the little car display up and show you the door. You could set the left door as the driver's door for the US. Air conditioning information, that's also something that pops up on the screen. So even though the air conditioning is below here, on the Avalon, you could have it kind of pop up manually. And then the reverse volume, this thing right here was messing with me forever. I actually turned that on and I didn't know, so I was getting so annoyed because my plus was actually lowering the volume and my minus was taking the volume up. So you can switch those back and forth with the volume reverse. So we're back in the main factory menu. So again, you want to turn your antenna normally on because that way it powers the power antenna. The HD reverse, I'm not sure what it is. I just left it on TVI. The screen set, you just calibrate your screens. You could turn off video in motion with the brake wire or turn it on. So I just disabled that because I didn't want it to disable my video. If you have a front view camera, you could turn that on, and various other settings in here that I haven't really messed with. The volume balance right here, this is another important one right here. So under volume balance, I was using this earlier and it was getting annoying because all my CarPlay was very low compared to the radio and everything else. So what I did was I turned up all those settings and I turned down the radio. I turned down all these other ones so that way my radio matched my iPod, Navi, or Bluetooth phone, which is what they use for the Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. So after I did all that, the volumes are pretty much balanced now. So I set everything else to 1 except for the Bluetooth and Navi and iPod. So again, we have all these other things right here, the video output, the backup tests, all this other stuff. So I just didn't really mess with most of this stuff. The OBD, onboard diagnostics, I turned that on, the sleep mode. So these are just various settings that maybe you shouldn't mess with it. If you don't know what's going on, you could actually screw up a lot of stuff. But if you mess around with it and just test it back and forth, then you can make adjustments for your vehicle. Thanks for joining me on this video on installing that new radio and testing out that Android radio from iDoing. Obviously, they've got some improvements to make on this one and I'm going to let them know. I'll keep you guys updated if I find anything new on this unit. If you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, turn on bell notifications, get notified every time I upload a video. For all these different projects, if I can do it, you guys can do it. I want to thank you for watching and I'll talk to you guys next time.